Hello, welcome back to the channel. So a lot of people have been asking for a smaller list build video, so today I thought we'd do a little bit of a combat patrol list. So we're looking at 500 points. Now we obviously can't be fielding anything big such as your Catan shards, unless you're completely just trying to table your opponent. So before we actually build the 500 point list, I wanted to try and assist you in your own list building logic. Everyone has their own way of building a list. Less experienced players may struggle with this part of the game. So your first decision is going to be based upon the Dynasty code, which ultimately drives your game plan and playstyle within a particular battle. This unfortunately can cut your options in half because there's not many units that fit into those dynasties that are good at both ranged and melee attacks. The units that can do both are usually overpriced, with a Scorpic Lord being an example. Now you don't necessarily have to go pure melee or pure shooty. Some codes are a bit more flexible, such as the Nihilak dynasty. This code is more about dominating territory. Now right now I think this is one of our strongest suits. An army-wide objective secured is very useful. Now once you've done so, you need to work out your warlord. Now in order to work out what type of warlord you need to select, you first need to look at what kind of character is it going to be. Is it going to be a beat stick kind of character where you want to launch him into the front lines? Or is it going to be a support character to help buff units that are going to actually be doing the bulk of the work for your game? So yet again, it's another fork in the road, and yet again, if you want the more versatile character that can do both, you're going to have to pay the points for it. So a Command Barge or the Silent King are some examples there of versatile warlord units. Also, while you're in this step of the build, decide on whether the command protocols are important enough for you to want them in the list. If they are, the character will need to be a noble unit. Yep, that's more restrictions there. But to be honest, in a 500 point game, I don't think it matters too much if you have command protocols or not. You don't have as many units on the table to benefit from the directives, so don't force it. Now once this step is complete, you've got your warlord and maybe you've even got an idea of what kind of unit is going to be supporting him or what unit he can actually support. Now these units are usually core units, not always, but a lot of these list builds involve those units that are the main foundation of a list. And with the new update to the core units earlier this month, we've got a lot more in terms of flexibility when it comes to core units. And ultimately our HQ or Warlord is going to be dishing out some bonuses to those said core units. So you've got your Warlord, you've got your core unit, you probably need to start thinking about some units that are going to be scoring you points within this mission. In a combat patrol mission, there are usually only 4 objective markers in play, all very centralised to the tabletop, and bear in mind the size of the game will only be 44 inch by 30 inch, so it's a very tight board. CANOPTEK Scarabs are ridiculously good in any game size, especially if you can get them with objectives secured. They're quick and easy to hide and have got plenty of wounds. They usually go unnoticed as they aren't a real threat in terms of damage, but I'd highly advise getting some, and you can get 3 units in match play in any game size. However, when you're using the missions from the Grand Tournament 2021 book, they have different restrictions, although there are no combat patrol missions within that book. So you're now looking at your Warlord, your core unit and the scoring unit. You're likely running out of points at this stage depending on what units you went for. So let's make an attempt of making a 500 point list then for this video. So for this list I'm going to be going with the Nihilak dynasty, as taking objectives is going to be the main focus, especially when there's very few objectives within the battle and they'll be hotly contested due to the board size. As much as I'd like to go cheap with the HQ to save points, I think a Command Barge is extremely useful in this kind of game size. Being able to fire into engagement range in a game that's got very few models is a huge swing in my opinion. Yes, he's expensive, but he will be the main focus of the list. Now Command Barge is 155 points at base cost, and then you add the Gauss Cannon for 5 points, that of course makes 160 points. Now I will be upgrading the Staff of Light to the Voltaic Staff, as it's mega useful in both shooting and in combat. And as for his Warlord trait, I need to keep him alive for as long as possible, especially if I've sunk a third of my points into one single model. So the Warlord trait I'm going to be selecting is Enduring Will for the -1 to all damage taken. Now he's going to be on 9 wounds to start, and he's got quantum shielding, so it's going to be very difficult to remove. As for his movement, he's got pretty decent movement, so he can steer himself out of trouble if needed, but the real aim here is to fire the staff, then in the same turn get into engagement range of an enemy unit, preferably something that's looking to score primary objectives such as infantry models. Now the Command Barge still fires both the cannon and the Voltaic staff into combat, whereas infantry models such as an Overlord, they can't be doing that. So in the second round of combat you're firing your range attacks, then you're mopping up with the staff in melee. Now he's also a noble unit, so he's granting the command protocols army wide. It's not game breaking, but it is very handy. So as he's got the Mine Will Be Done ability, I need him buffing core units. We've got plenty of options with the core units, but I need something that's going to be quick enough to keep up with him. So as we're playing Nihilak, I think survivability is the most important factor here, as I plan to be bossing the major objectives within the battle, so I need invulnerable saves. That leaves me with the CANOPTEK WRAITHS, which are now a new core unit. You either take them with the Vicious Claws for strength 6 -2 AP and 2 damage with 4 attacks, or you can opt for the Whip Coils, which are strength 4 -1 AP 1 damage, but you get 8 attacks per Wraith instead of 4. So it kind of depends on what faction you're going up against, but there's no points cost with exchanging these weapons, so they're interchangeable as you go. So as this is only a 500 point list, I think a min unit of 3 of them is okay for 105 points. For bigger games you want to max out the unit. So with the My Will Be Done ability on the command barge, these wraiths are going to be hitting on 3s instead of 4s, and also they're going to have the Relentless March ability to push their movement from movement 12 inch to movement 13 inch, which of course pairs quite nicely with the barge that moves 12. Now you're not likely going to be advancing with these if they're alongside your command barge. So that's the Warlord dealt with and the supporting unit dealt with. Next we need some cheap scoring units, and there's nothing better in the game of 40k than the CANOPTEK Scarab Swarms. You get a min unit of 3 costing you 45 points. They're literally going to be winning your games. They're not scary enough to be targeted, and even if they were, they're small enough to hide. They've got a 10 inch movement, which is always nice and should always be advancing them. Unless you're looking to tie up a shooter unit, then you're going to make the charge on those kind of guys. Never tie up a melee unit, just block them off and let them charge your scarabs. Don't give your opponent a free swing at your swarms within your own turn. We then need some troops within a combat patrol detachment, and I've gone with the cheapest one here, which is the Immortals. A unit of 5 of them costing 85 points. You can swap out the options of the weapons, game dependent of course, but they've got the Gauss Blasters or the Tesla Carbines, so you take whatever you want. I personally like the Gauss Blasters because of the extra range. I've got 30 inch range, Rapid Fire 1, Shrimp 5, minus 2 AP, 1 damage. But against factions that have only got one single wound, you're probably better taking the Tesla. We then come to another fork in the road. We either need to go for some heavy support to get an early advantage in the first battle round, or we need some more units that can score points and make a nuisance of themselves. Now with the battlefield being so small, I don't think it's the type of game to be bringing a long range heavy into the battle, as a lot of the game is going to be at close proximity. So I'm going to be bringing a single unit of flayed ones, which comes at 65 points for a unit of 5 of them. Flayed ones are now core units, won't likely be within range of the command barge to gain any command protocols or the My Will Be Done ability, but they can deep strike with their dimensional translocation ability, and they can jump into objective markers turn 2 or turn 3 ideally when there's barely any enemy units left in the battle. Now if your barge did actually get near them, they'll be hitting on 2s with their flensing claws, which is pretty sweet. So I've got just 40 points left for the list to be complete. So what I'm going to be doing is getting myself a pair of Cryptothrow models, because they're still going to be a point scoring unit, and I'm actually going to be putting them into strategic reserves, and hopefully they'll be doing me some actions coming in late game. So this should all fit perfectly into a combat patrol detachment, which will make it legal for this game type. So tactically speaking, the command barge is the focal point of the list. The wraiths are simply there to add wounds, provide a lookout Sir bubble, even if it is just temporary. Then the barge wants to be getting to the most lucrative area of the board, likely the centre, mission dependent of course. He wants to be firing the Voltite Staff and the Gauss Cannon right from turn 1, looking to make the charge move. Now as he's got 9 wounds and he's got that Warlord trait, Enduring Will, alongside the Quantum Shielding and Living Metal, there shouldn't be too much at 500 points to deal with him so easily. Now if there's a lot of fire in their backlines, you get the flayed ones or the scarabs to push up onto them, prevent the range attacks coming in. Possibly you could utilise the CANOPTEK wraiths if needed. And if there is a melee threat on the board, then the wraiths can go into them as meat shields. They should last a few rounds with their in-run save, while the command barge is free to mop up. Now there will be a lot of min units on foot at 500 points, which are actually perfect targets for our command barge to clear up on. Now if you prefer the War Scythe over the Staff, then swap out the Gauss Cannon for the Tesla Cannon, and then use the 5 points on the War Scythe, and then you could even use the Relic slot on the Void Reaper, or you could optionally take the Veil of Darkness Relic, although in this game size I don't think it's needed. The Voltite Staff in my opinion has the most output, as vehicles can fire into combat, and I prefer just having 4 strength 6 shots at minus 2 AP 2 damage, over the 2 extra attacks in melee at strength 7 minus 4 AP 2 damage, as the melee attacks aren't a guaranteed attack in each and every battle round, whereas you've got more chance of shooting with a ranged attack with the Voltite Staff. Then of course he's going to be providing the Overlord buffs to the CANOPTEK wraiths, who also want to similarly be firing their ranged weapons and getting into a fist fight. With their in-run saves, they're likely going to be surviving or breaking even at worst, just like pawns in a chess game. That's fine, as your barge is the main thing here. Now the Scarab Swarms ideally need to keep low profile, no need to go screening anything. They need to go grabbing hold of objectives as soon as possible. Now they've got objectives secured, 12 wounds. Again, a 500 point game, that's a lot of wounds to go through with minimal units. The Scarabs are going to soak up a lot of those while holding ground. Then the flayed ones, they aren't the quickest, so bringing them in late game is the better option here. You can either use them directly with your primary objectives, or they could be pulling off actions for your secondaries, or maybe get behind enemy lines or engage on all fronts. And this of course also applies to the Cryptothrows that are going to be coming in turn 3. Now in terms of other objectives, there's 2 that were within the Necron book that are worth a look here. Now Purge the Vermin is a very good shout, as your opponent won't have as many units to defend all quarters, especially if the main mission is to take objectives within the central area. So that's an easy 2 points per quarter per turn there, or the one that I never use in bigger games, but Treasures of the Aeons. It's a pretty decent shout due to the fact that your opponent selects which objectives the treasures are going to be. but in a combat patrol mission there's not that many objectives within the battle to choose from, and will again likely be centralised within the board layout. And with our Nihilak Dynasty objective secured, this should be an easy method of scoring points with Treasure of the Aeons. And it's going to stack quite nicely as well with the primaries, so it's 2 for the price of 1 there. As far as the command protocols go, a lot of people seem to ask how I'm going to use the command protocols within a list. So let me explain my order. In turn 1 I'll be using the Protocol of Sudden Storm just to get the +1 to the movement. I want to be getting as close as I can. Potentially I can make a first turn charge, but I'm ideally looking for it to be in the second turn. In turn 2 I'll be using the Protocol of Hungry Void, which is in melee. When I'm wounded on a 6+, I'm going to get the additional -1 AP, or alternatively with Directive 2 I can +1 to the strength. If I'm going against Toughness 7 vehicles with Vicious Claws for example, that could be a real winner. In battle round 3, Protocol of Conquering Tyrant, just to add 3 inches to the My Will Be Done ability from my command barge going on to the CANOPTEK Wraiths, potentially reaching out to the flayed ones if needed. And then on turn 4, Protocol of Undying Legions to use my Living Metal ability twice for that battle round. As for the 5th one, I'll probably just go with Protocol of Vengeful Stars. If my command barge is still active, using his range capabilities, any 6s to wound will increase the AP by 1, or alternatively with Directive 2. If firing within half range, the opponent doesn't receive the benefits of cover to its saving throws. Now oddly I've not actually used the Nihilak Dynasty command protocol with Protocol of Eternal Guardian. Didn't think it'd go well with my list, so that's the order I'd use. Now of course only the command barge within this list is actually going to give out the command protocols within 6 inches. So it's only going to be likely the CANOPTEK Wraiths as well as the command barge that are receiving these protocols. So yeah, that's my 500 point combat patrol list for the Necrons. If you've got a 500 point list, let me know below what yours looks like. Bearing in mind that the core update is now in effect, so it does make for some more interesting lists overall. Guys, if you haven't already, subscribe below and like the video on your exits. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.